everybody, it's Natalie Bencivenga, and welcome to Facts Over Fear. I've got a good show for everybody tonight. So, do you guys know anything about the Massachusetts Governor's Council? Crickets, right? Okay. It was established in 1629, and it is one of the oldest governing bodies in the country, and it's also one of the least understood. So, it's playing this quiet but powerful role, helping to shape the courts by approving the judges who make life-altering decisions every day. Critics say it's outdated. It's just sort of this rubber stamp. But today's guest says it might be able to be something much more. Jordan Korgood is running for governor's council in District 4 in Massachusetts, campaigning on a promise to challenge the status quo, bring accountability to judicial appointments, and push for a system rooted in equity, rehabilitation, and actual scrutiny. So what does it take to actually reform a body that most voters, including myself, barely even knew existed? And how can a new generation of candidates help reshape how justice works from the inside? So let's get to it. Jordan, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Natalie. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So before we get into your platform and why you decided to run, let's just set the stage here. Can you explain in more detail for people that are maybe just hearing about the Governor's Council for the first time tonight, what real power does it have and why should voters care about it? Why are you making it a thing?
Absolutely. So in most states, as you might know, for at least some of the judiciary, judges are elected democratically by the voters in the state. Maybe not all, but at least some district judges and magistrate judges are elected directly. Here in Massachusetts, we do not do that. We have what's known as the Governor's Council, which is tasked with appointing judges, and they are the only body that is elected to do so, which means they're the closest thing that we have in Massachusetts to general democratic control over the composition of the judiciary. It right now, like you said, is used to rubber stamp candidates. Most times, judicial candidates are not questioned thoroughly enough, and usually they are unanimously approved without much scrutiny. But I'm looking to change that because I believe that judges here in the state that I live in and I love should reflect the values of Massachusetts residents: racial equity, prison reform, anti-recidivism, rehabilitation. I believe that by running for this role, I can accomplish that and make sure that our judiciary reflects our values.
Wow, that's really fascinating. So why take this on? Why take this on? Why is this idea of the courts so important to you personally? And is this something that you're hearing from constituents as you've been amping up your campaign?
Absolutely. So right now, I'm sure you all know, we're facing unprecedented attacks from Trump's fascist regime, and he's largely using his packed judiciary to attack marginalized and suppressed people on all fronts: abortion rights, First Amendment rights, immigrant rights. I mean, I could go on.
Yeah.
Here in Massachusetts, we can actually use our judges, and our judges can use their entire judicial authority to make sure that the people who are being targeted by Trump's judges are protected under the law and know that their judges are backing them. For me personally, I first became familiar with the Governor's Council after being arrested at my school for protesting 2 years ago at my school's encampment for solidarity with Palestine. Learning about the judicial process as I went through my hearings to make sure that my charges were never even filed in the first place. But learning about the judicial process through that was really eye-opening to see how these judges get to the bench in the first place. We don't really have much control over it beyond this council. So that's my personal connection.
I mean, I think that's a pretty powerful one for sure. It was interesting. The reason I found you, I saw some of your posts on social media about your campaign. And I'm like, well, this is a very interesting person who seems to have a lot of depth as to why they want to do this. Can you talk about the importance of motivation and passion as it relates to being in the legislature and in these positions of power? Because to your point, Jordan, I think what I'm seeing a lot is our Congress and our Senate are made up of a lot of geriatric people, right? There's a difference in understanding about the way the world is now as it was 30, 40, even 50 years ago when they were much younger and perhaps facing the issues of their day, those issues are very different from the ones that we're facing now. And the fact that now we have this fascist regime that is hand selecting judges, activist judges, to do their bidding is incredibly concerning. So can you talk a little bit about the passion that you have for this and the motivation behind it? Because it seems to me that it's bigger than just you and your experience, even though that might have been the impetus.
Absolutely. So this is something we've been hearing across the country. We have millions and millions of people standing out at events like No Kings, people who are going to be mobilizing for May Day, who are saying no to the Trump regime, who are saying no to fascism, taking over the lives of Americans, taking over the lives of everyone who lives here. So for me personally, I heard that call, and what I saw in Massachusetts, at least, was an aging legislature and an aging executive body that's largely composed of the longest serving incumbents in the country. For those who don't know, Massachusetts has one of the worst, if not the worst, incumbency problem in the country, with many legislators going on to serve for 20, 30, and in the case of my opponent, 41 years. He was first elected in 1985, making him the longest serving elected state official currently in Massachusetts government. He often doesn't bother showing up to the meetings or votes. He runs his own private law firm with over 100 employees, and he seems like he can't be bothered to actually show up and represent the voice and will of the people. I want to make sure that I'm doing that because I think people are tired of establishment Democrats. People are tired of incumbents that can't be bothered to actually show up to work. People want change and people want it now. I believe that I'm the only voice running to bring that to this district.
What do you mean by establishment Democrats? What defines that for you?
Sure. So, an establishment Democrat for me are people who are oftentimes maybe ran with energy and principles for the first time to try and change the system that they were in. But after 10, 15, 20 years, might be bought out by lobbying groups, might be bought out by private interests, be it real estate developers, be it corporate PACs, be it interest groups that are largely focused on making sure that their interests get passed through the legislature. I am not an establishment Democrat. I'm running to make sure that the will of my constituents and the will of my community and the will of my neighbors are being heard in the Massachusetts Governor's Council chamber. I'm an Organized for Peace endorsed candidate, which means that I am not accepting any money from APAC. I'm not accepting any money from the war lobby or any corporate PACs. And I think that's important because a lot of legislators today are.
If you're just joining me, I'm Natalie Bencivenga. I'm here with Jordan Korgood, who is a candidate for the Governor's Council in District 4 in Massachusetts. We've been getting some comments. One of them, V for Violet, said the only thing giving me hope now is the younger generation. I mean, Jordan, I think that's a sentiment a lot of people are feeling right now. And what's interesting to me is I've always kind of seen Massachusetts as quote unquote more of a progressive state in comparison to some of the other places. But where do you think the judicial system is falling short?
For sure, for sure. So I think what I'll start off by saying is that I moved to Massachusetts when I was 17 years old. I've spent my entire adult life in Massachusetts, and I have a hell of a lot to thank it for. I wouldn't be the person that I am today if not for the state of Massachusetts. Massachusetts is a state that gave me the means, the support, and the legal grounds to transition. I'm a proud transgender woman. And without living in Massachusetts, I don't think I would have been able to actually be the person and the adult that I am today, alive and talking to you. That being said, for a state as progressive as it claims to be, our judiciary is lagging far behind. We have people who have been waiting for decisions from the parole board for years. Our states still leave people in solitary confinement. People can be sentenced to life without parole in Massachusetts. And oftentimes, in our jails and in our prisons, we have inmates who are being beaten to death, either by guards, other inmates, with no accountability and no transparency. I am the only candidate that's running to actually use Massachusetts judiciary to steer the state away from mass incarceration and towards abolition. And I know that might seem like a far-fetched concept, but there are ways we can do that, and it starts with the judges.
I do think it's interesting, and I appreciate what you just said there. I know that sounds like a far-fetched concept, because it's almost like we always have to be apologizing, or putting up disclaimers for acknowledging human rights, and maybe thinking about doing things a little differently than we've always done them, because we've kind of seen where the road has led us. We have Trump wanting to bring back firing squads, and really violent ways of murdering people who have been put in prison by the state, which is another form of state sanctioned violence, the death penalty. We're seeing ICE and the treatment of how we're allowing people to not even survive, I would say barely exist, in these detention centers around our nation, how we're allowing kidnappings of children, and how we're using our money, our tax dollars, to fund wars and to bomb children in other nations, right? So when you talk about abolition and we look at the road that we've been on, because we don't even want to have these conversations, or whenever young people, or really anybody that is open-minded enough to bring these words to the forefront, they're immediately shut down as, this is unrealistic, this is, pie in the sky, you're woo-woo, you're hippy-dippy, whatever. But at the same time, the level of violence that continues to escalate is trying to be more and more normalized, right, by this billionaire class that wants people to basically be enslaved to them. Can you talk a little bit about the semantics around these words that you're using and why you're choosing them?
Absolutely. I think abolition is a really scary word for a lot
Mhm.
of people to hear. When people hear the word abolition, they start thinking of getting rid of prisons. People start getting these ideas in their head, which, people will have their own opinions of them personally. That
Mhm.
being said, abolition is something that we can do to begin to improve the lives of everyone in this state. Not Massachusetts, but the US arrests more people per capita than almost any other country in the world. Our judicial system is targeted at incarcerating people and imprisoning people for the crimes of mental health, struggling with mental health, for the crimes of substance abuse and addiction, for the crimes of your own circumstances. Oftentimes, even here in Massachusetts, someone who might grow up in an impoverished neighborhood or in an impoverished town and end up with the wrong group of kids or end up with the wrong group of friends might end up in prison on gang affiliation charges. Here
Mhm.
in Boston and in Massachusetts, we've had our fair share of cops who have been caught abusing teenagers and young adults, cops who are planting evidence on people. Our own our own police force can't be trusted to actually give accountability and transparency. I want to make sure that our judges are well aware of how the justice system in Massachusetts is two-faced. We have a
Mhm.
justice system that is currently working in the interests of rich folks, largely older white men who may be committing crimes. And if they are ever charged with a crime, they're usually not being convicted or being sentenced to suspended sentences, community services, or fines that don't actually discourage them from committing again. Meanwhile, you have an entirely other justice system working against poor children, black and brown children, who are simply being caught up in their own circumstances, in their surroundings. This justice system isn't fair. It's not right. Our judges should recognize that and be doing everything in their power to right it, in their sentencing and in their proceedings.
So critics might say all of this is well and good, Jordan, but the council's role is limited. So how much impact could one person realistically have on this system in that role, in that position?
Absolutely. So I think it's really important to mention that the Governor's Council has had a lot of long-time incumbents who are known for rubber stamping candidates through for a long time. That being said, in 2022 and in 2024, it received a lot of new interest because of a slate of progressive candidates that ran and replaced multi year incumbents. Marilyn Ann Devaney, who served on the governor's council for 20 years, who was charged with multiple crimes while serving on the governor's council, was replaced by the first public defender ever elected to the council,
Mm.
a woman by the name of Mara Dolan. She's progressive. She's interested, at least in some of the same ideals that I am. We have a progressive Governor's Counselor Tamisha Civil, and Tara Jacobs, who are now on the council. So we have this slate of 3 to 4, we'll say 3.5 progressive counselors that are currently sitting on the council that have run on at least some of the same platform that I'm running on. I believe that if I'm elected to the council, I can be the spark needed to actually galvanize that group to be in the majority, to make sure that we are rejecting judges who do not have the interests of Massachusetts at heart. Former prosecutors, people with bias against Black and brown folks, people with biases against anyone with substance abuse issues or mental health struggles. We should not be just approving these candidates, rubber stamping them through. We need to actually exhibit great scrutiny and make sure that our judges have the interests of Massachusetts residents at heart and want to move our state towards rehabilitative systems and away from the carceral ones that are so commonplace right now.
Okay, let's look at the bigger picture here of who you are and what your lived experience could bring to this role. You had mentioned that you are a trans woman, but you're also a marine biologist, which
I
is
am.
really cool.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the skill sets that you could bring from that profession and how you think they could help you at this job?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, as you mentioned, I'm a marine biologist. I first received my bachelor's in marine biology, and my master's is actually in environmental policy. So, I work for the state of Massachusetts as a fisheries biologist. And what I do every day is a lot of data processing, a lot of collection, a lot of exhibiting careful scrutiny over measurements, over data to make conclusions and to make scientific deductions about what's affecting fish populations in Massachusetts, largely populations like smelt, herring, um, the same kind of principles that you need to be a scientist, which are problem solving, deductive reasoning. All of those things can be used to actually investigate and scrutinize these judges or judicial candidates, can be used to question them and make sure that their values are in line with Massachusetts and in line with my voters.
I saw a photo of you with like a fish necklace, and now I get it. Now it makes sense.
It's probably this one right
That
here.
was that one. That's right. um, if you were to win, what does success look like to you for the first year on the council, and what should voters hold you accountable for?
Absolutely. This is probably one of my favorite questions because a lot of people have asked, Jordan, what will you actually do if you're elected? I mean, you only have so much power. What I will do is I will listen to my voters and I want my voters and I want my constituents to rest assured that they can come to me to give me feedback on judicial candidates that I'm going to be questioning, on parole board candidates that I'm going to be questioning. If people have concerns about prosecutorial biases or just biases in general of candidates that I'm going to be questioning, I want them to be able to come to me to make sure that I'm well aware of anything that would be affecting their capacity and that would be affecting their qualifications to actually be a judge for the state of Massachusetts. I'm planning on, when elected, to actually set up a forum to make sure that any constituents or any voters in Massachusetts actually can contact me about any judicial questions or concerns that they might have, be it a uh, parole request from a family member of someone currently awaiting a parole board decision, or a concern about a potential candidate coming through to be elected to a state or district judgeship. I want to make sure that my constituents can contact me, and I want them to rest assured that I will do everything in my power and in my authority to make sure that we are not rubber stamping candidates through, to make sure that we are not appointing candidates who will not do the things in their power to move Massachusetts away from mass incarceration. I'm the only abolitionist candidate who's not afraid to say the word abolition, who believes that the justice system in Massachusetts is broken.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be unafraid to fix it. We need to be unafraid to do everything in our power, even if it means making political enemies, to fix it.
So we've gotten some nice comments here. I just wanted to read this one because I do want to get your thoughts now that Now that we all know you're a marine biologist, I think people are interested. And Violet says it's terrifying what's happening to the EPA. We fought so hard for the environment and conservation. It's being trashed. Trump has just been obliterating all types of environmental law and lifting so many things that had been in place for so many years. Just getting rid of whole sectors of our environmental protections. How does that feel as somebody that works in this space? And what do you think, in particular, younger generations need to do in order to salvage whatever might be left of our environment after this administration gets through with it?
Absolutely. It's heartbreaking to see, is what
Yeah.
I'll say first and foremost. As someone who's always wanted to be a marine biologist, and you can check my fifth grade elementary school yearbook to
Oh.
confirm that information, it has been incredibly disheartening to see what's going on to the world and what's going on to nature around us. They did not
Mhm.
ask for this. They did
Yeah.
not vote for this. They're simply the victims of our circumstances.
Mm.
And it's really, really horrible to see. But what I will say is that we are not powerless. I think there's a huge degree of this kind of learned helplessness that affects a
Mm.
lot of people, or forced helplessness, where we sit down and I'll admit it's hard. It's hard to see the headlines that come out every single day. As a trans person, I'm
Yeah.
the first person to be able to say that it is incredibly, incredibly disappointing and disheartening. But we actually need to use our frustration and our anger and our sadness to stand up for what we believe is right, be it joining direct actions. So, Extinction Rebellion, and a whole climate defiance are doing a lot of direct action where they target the CEOs and the executives of huge companies and corporations that are destroying the environment. ExxonMobil, Chevron, Amazon. Join these direct action groups. They're the ones that are putting the pressure on the stockholders and the shareholders of these corporations to pressure them to stop polluting, to stop destroying the environment. And if you feel so inclined, if you think you have the capacity, run for office. One of the big tenets of my platform is to appoint judges with a vested environmental interest. I want to make sure that we're appointing not just former prosecutors, but former environmental attorneys, judges who
Mm.
will take corporate pollution seriously, judges who
Mm.
will actually give fair sentencing and appropriate punishments to companies that are destroying the environment in Massachusetts and are not simply handing out small fines that act as pay to enter pollution fees, but rather actually give large enough sentencing, be it prison time, be it large fines, to disincentivize these companies from continuing to destroy the world around us. There
Mm.
are so many things that we can be doing. Go to a community cleanup. I went to two this weekend. In my 40 hours of canvassing that I did this weekend, I made the time to bring myself and other canvassers to clean up multiple parks in Dorchester, in Boston. It's so, so frustrating to see what's
Mhm.
happening to the world around us, but we cannot wallow. We cannot sit down in frustration and despair. This is the time to stand up and to take action in whatever way you can.
Amen to that. Jordan, as we wrap this up, I just have one more question. If you're speaking obviously from your own lived experience, but once again, I'm just hearing so much conviction and passion in what you believe. I'm hoping it will inspire other younger people to get off the sidelines and to get in the game of politics itself, especially during this time of such divisiveness and, violence. I mean, this is a scary time to decide to run for office, especially being a part of a marginalized community where violent rhetoric and action is very much being directed at. Do you worry about backlash because of your identity? And how would you encourage other members of the LGBTQ plus community to engage with political spaces?
If I was concerned about the opinions of others
Hmm.
in regards to my identity, in regards to who I am, I would never have transitioned and I would have never
Mm.
decided to run for public office. I
That
get
part.
multiple death threats per day. I have
Sorry.
people, it's okay. I let
Mm.
them roll off my back because honestly, the people who are leaving these horrible comments are usually insecure in their own convictions, in their own ideals. They're looking for something hateful to cling
Yeah.
onto. If I let them impact me, then I wouldn't be able to actually go out and do the things that I need to do to make Massachusetts a better place, to try and improve the lives for my community and my neighbors. I received the worst vitriol you can imagine in my comment section. People describing in graphic terms what they would like to do to me,
Mm.
not based on what my platform is,
Yeah.
not based on what I want to do for Massachusetts, but on who I am as a person. And that's why I don't take it to heart. If I was getting honest, genuine feedback about criticisms regarding my
Mhm.
platform and my policies, I would engage with that. I would have constructive dialogues about that. But these people are not interested in attacking me on what I plan to do. They're attacking me on who I am. It's an immutable thing. It's something that I cannot change. It's something I'm proud of. I would not be alive today if not for the fact that I decided to transition. So I honestly let them roll off my back. And for every death threat I get another 10 comments thanking me for running,
Mhm.
thanking me for giving visibility to queer people and trans people running for public office. And
So,
that means a lot to me.
absolutely, I have to ask you because as a woman in this space, meaning this public forum that we're in, I too get a lot of unsavory comments, let's say, Jordan, mostly from men, cis hetero men. Were you surprised when you discovered the level of misogyny that was directed at women? Of course, I know your experience is also layered, but was it a little surprising to you just how much it is?
I would say it wasn't surprising to me.
Mhm.
I spoke with my partner at length about what the feedback would be. For me running for office, and I was well aware that this would happen. I guess what I was surprised was that when I first started making content, the very, very, very first things I was getting was hateful feedback, largely death
Mm.
threats, misogynistic comments, slut shaming, you name it.
Yep.
I was well aware that that would come if and when my campaign started to actually get some momentum and build some popularity. But the very first things that I received were death threats, about half of
Wow.
my comments for the first couple of days. But what I will say, um, even with how horrible that is,
Yeah.
it drove engagement. It made sure that people who actually do share
Listen.
my values and my ideals were getting to see my content. They were coming
Mhm.
to my page. I've had over 500,000 views on my Instagram content in the last 3 weeks or so. And honestly, a lot of that initial momentum that led to people seeing me was driven by these misogynistic comments and these death threats. And that's horrible. And that's awful. But I'm not going to let them impact me. And I'm honestly going to take them and try and take the good out of them, which
Yeah.
is the fact that people who share my values are now backing me, supporting
Mm.
me. I've made a lot of connections because of the momentum and because of the viral nature of my content, because of those comments. It's how I got in touch and how a lot of people like yourself and like other candidates and other reporters have become familiar with me and my campaign. And I'm going to take the good out of that I can and throw away the bad.
Amen to that. And I agree with Violet. That is definitely finding the silver lining. And I very much appreciate that perspective and that tenacity. Just please make sure that you take care of your mental health during this experience because it is a wild ride doing this work. And of course, in your role as being a candidate, I really appreciate you, though, taking the time to be in community with all of us tonight. If people want to learn more about your campaign, where can they go?
So, what I will tell you to do is go to two places, jordanforgood.com. That's JORDANFORGOOD.com. It's easy to remember. Or you can go visit me on Instagram or TikTok at Jordan for Good. Um, what I will ask is that if you believe in my ideals, if you share my vision, if you like my platform, donate to my campaign. Running this campaign is expensive. I do not have a father who was the president of the Boston City Council, who left me a large campaign fund. I do not have um, real estate developers in my campaign fund dropping $1,000 donations. I have grassroots donors who are supporting the work that I'm doing, and I need as many of them as possible to ensure that I can keep doing this work. So if you feel inspired, please donate to my campaign at the link in my website or in my Instagram.
Thank you so much. And I really appreciate that because, I've been doing political interviews for a while now, and I always like to make sure that I get a chance to interview everybody that wants to be a part of this community and share what they want to do. It's important that we put out ideas that help move us forward into the next wave of existence so we can come together and leave things a little bit better than the way that we found them. So, Jordan, thank you so much for being here
Thank you,
tonight.
Natalie.
I
I
appreciate
appreciate
you.
it.
Absolutely. I hope you'll come back and keep us posted on how the campaign is going. And as always, everyone, until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Good night. Thanks, Jordan.
Good night.